Hey everybody, and welcome to Let's Look at Pivvot with two V's. I don't know, there was a joke about your mother somewhere in there, but in any case, this is a game that has recently come out on Steam, previously available on iOS and Android. It is a mobile port, and it's by a developer that, full disclosure, I don't really have like any kind of, friendly or obviously not romantic relationship with the developer, but we've talked on Twitter a couple of times, and I like to mention that just in case it makes some people think I have a conflict of interest, and if you do think that, then feel free to go check out someone else's video, I should say, or a written review. This is, I'm gonna coin a stupid term that'll probably never be used again. It's a super hexagon-like, if you will. It's a game that is very fast-paced, addictive, avoidance kind of game. Super hexagon, you kind of rotate around the screen to avoid these obstacles that come in. In Pivvot, you rotate around a screen to avoid these obstacles that come around. But you're on a track, so it's a little bit different. It's actually a lot less like super hexagon than I may have made it out to seem here. $3 on mobile, $5 on Steam, which, oftentimes the price kind of magically inflates from one market to the other, but the justification for this one is that it also has an all-new multiplayer mode, and all of the DLC that was optional in the mobile version is packed in. $5 seems like a fair price for a mobile port to Steam for me. It only bothers me when they start charging, $10 or $15, and it's $2 on the App Store, or $1 on the App Store. In any case, we're going to start with a single-player Voyage, and the Voyage is not my favorite game mode. There's a lot of modes in this game, and it's easy to perhaps overlook that when we get started here. And the music's going to start out very quietly. I may actually, well, we'll see if it gets, the main menu music was really loud. We'll see if it gets a little louder here. It's going to be a hard game to audio balance. You know what? I am actually going to go back to the main menu and crank it up a little bit. But in any case, the Voyage is basically like the not story mode of the game, but kind of like a linear version of the game. And then there's an endless mode as well, which works a lot more like Super Hexagon's main mode, and is going to be a little bit more of the engaging mode from what I've played so far, and I suck at it. So what's going on in Pivvot here? Well, the first thing I should say is, a little bit of a trigger warning here if you are prone to seizures or epileptic-based triggers like that. You might want to watch out because it has pulsating lights, like Super Hexagon, pulsating music, a lot like something like Electronic Superjoy or something like that. But, Pivvot is a game where you basically are this ball along a track attached to an axis, and you rotate that axis to avoid obstacles that come in your path. If you end up hitting an enemy or an obstacle, then you die, and you have to restart. In this case, we have checkpoints, so all we have to do is finish the level with as few, or finish the mission, I guess, with as few deaths as possible, getting introduced to harder and harder obstacles along the way. But in Endless, as soon as you die, you have to start from the beginning, which can be very frustrating, but is also the source of the kind of addictiveness that, it makes this game and other games like it very popular, I think. At least as popular as Super Hexagon was, which is probably the biggest game in the genre that I can really think of. I'm using the 360 controller for this, which honestly, I never played the mobile versions. This seems like the most logical control scheme for me. Basically, I'm using the left trigger and right trigger to control my rotations. You can use the analog sticks as well, but I found the analog sticks a little finicky. And the triggers work perfectly fine. There are some times where, I wish I had a little bit more granular control over movement. Like, it seems like just the lightest tap on the actual triggers here will send me, at least 20 or 30 degrees around here. Yeah, that was stupid of me to try to do that in the middle of an obstacle there. But, yeah, I think the 360 controller works fine, but it also has keyboard and mouse support as well. Voyage mode is basically, I kind of consider the normal Voyage mode to be a little bit of a tutorial that you, go through once and then probably never touch again. It just introduces us to all the obstacles that we're going to encounter, and it's not really procedurally generated, or randomly generated, but there are a pool of obstacles, and basically what it does is it spends, one level, one section here, which takes, 4 repeat successes on an obstacle to actually get past, to teach us about a new obstacle, and then it kind of pulls from the obstacle pool to give us new ones in the future, and you learn how to deal with these, and, I probably died 15, 20, 30 times my first time through the Voyage mode, and I did a little bit better my second time, but eventually you just kind of figure out how to solve all these puzzles, and then it's all about putting them together on the fly in the Endless mode, which is by far the more engaging mode to actually play here. So we'll work our way through here. Just give me a second. Good. Yeah, how do I feel about Pivvot so far? So I played maybe 20 minutes of Pivvot the first time that I booted it up, and I played about half an hour the second time that I booted it up. And the first time, all I did was play the Voyage mode, and I was kind of like, I'm over it. It seems like once you get the obstacles, it's a little bit too easy, right? But the Endless mode has actually, completely triggered something inside of me that makes me want to score attack in the same way that Super Hexagon did. And when we go to that mode, you'll understand why I'm playing the Super Hexagon drinking game here. Drink every time I mention that Terry Kavanaugh game. But it really does kind of hit the same notes. It's a little bit different because in Super Hexagon, you die in 10 seconds, whereas in Pivot, sometimes it can take 45 to 60. And it's a little bit annoying to have to replay the same sections over and over, but they're... It makes up for it in terms of just like the, staying in the zone style gameplay that we've got going on here. So once we finish this Voyage mode, you'll really see that. And I'll do my best to highlight the variety of other modes that we come across as well. Visually, I like the game. Audio, we'll talk about it, but I am a little bit bummed that there's only one track in the game. Like, that's something that to me would have been, I don't want to say necessarily like an easy thing to improve upon, but it would have been maybe where I would have liked to have seen... not effort, but like some more love applied, if that makes sense. The song that's in the game is fine, and there's some different variations on it based on whether you're on like one of these light levels, which is essentially a tutorial, or you're on one of the darker levels, which is essentially, where you're improving a little bit more. But yeah, I would have liked to have seen more variety. Again, kind of like in Super Hexagon. And some random generation, I guess, on what actual obstacles you see in Endless Mode would be nice as well. But it is worth noting, games like Super Hexagon, a lot of people, I think, falsely assumed that Super Hexagon had like a randomly or procedurally generated level every time you booted it up. But there's actually just, recurring elements that kind of get grouped together. And you run into the same levels an awful lot. And the same thing happens in Pivot, except it's exactly the same, basically. Which does make it a little frustrating to play through, like, the first 30 seconds over and over again, if you mess up a minute and a half in, for example. But it's not a deal breaker for sure. Initially, I wasn't that necessarily enthused with Pivot, but after I got past realizing that the Voyage mode isn't the main mode, I was like, oh, I get it now. So, know getting into this that the Endless mode is where you're meant to spend your time. And also know getting into this that this is not the kind of game where you're probably going to invest 100 hours in. Like, this is not The Binding of Isaac or Rogue Legacy or something like that. This is much more of like something you'd play, for a couple of hours one night, try to get a high score, beat your friends, for example. Now, there's probably people out there that have played an awful lot of this in its various incarnations before. I think this was out on PC, maybe on Desura or something like that earlier. I can't remember, but, it did make it through Greenlight, so I assume there was a PC version that came before it that I just didn't play. What did I hit there? Did I bug out, or did I just not see an obstacle or something like that? Okay, my bad. We'll move along here. I was thinking I was doing a little bit better. So yeah, like, again, I can't stress enough that we're just doing this Voyage mode to kind of show off the kind of obstacles that you can get, and to give me a little bit more of a, the possibility of actually talking while playing, because this is one of those games that it's difficult to do that with. But yeah, if you're into this kind of stuff, I don't want to call it a lunch break roguelike, and, I can't go one episode of a Let's Look At without comparing something to a roguelike, obviously. But this is the kind of thing that, it seems like it's more well-suited for, like, trying to be cute with that play there. More well-suited to, like, half-an-hour bursts or something like that, and, then you want to go look at a white wall or something and listen to some ambient music to just kind of clear your head. So, we're only a few levels away from finishing off this Voyage here, and then we'll play Endless Mode. And admittedly, there's Expert Voyage, which I have not played. There's Expert Endless, which I have not played. Those modes need to be unlocked, so there is some content gating, which I think is a good thing. This is just me trying to be a little too fancy here when there's a very easy solution for these obstacles. It's just putting it together on the fly, right? Yeah, there's some gating. You have to get to 100 seconds in Endless Mode to unlock the Expert modes. And I can only get to like 70 seconds. And it's not that like any individual obstacle is hard. The individual obstacles are actually fairly easy once you actually get the patterns down and figure out how to do it and, master how much you should press on the 360 trigger to make it work. But it's stringing them all together, because if you make one mistake, then it all goes tits up, right? So we're going to have stop being cute with the rotations here. You don't get extra points for spinning around here, although how awesome would it be if you did? My general strategy in Pivot so far is always have the ball behind where the actual like point is on the map, because that gives you maybe like another half second to actually react to the obstacles, which can be pretty important. And after that, it's just, get into your flow state, let your brain do the talking. That was a terrible choice there, and it was a choice. I rotated in the wrong direction. Let's try this again. I can never figure out which direction to rotate in right off the bat on these. I kind of gotta give it a second. If you rotate in the wrong direction, you just end up hitting the ball in the center. And when you know what obstacle's coming, it's a little bit easier. Another thing that makes the difficulty a little bit higher is, ooh, there we go. Another thing that makes the difficulty a little bit higher is, of course, not knowing what obstacle comes until it's already there, so it works. The way endless mode works is that essentially, like, every 4 or 5 obstacles that you cross, the game gets faster and faster, which is how the difficulty ends up. There we go. So we completed Voyage there. 6 deaths. It's the best I've ever done. That's not necessarily anything to write home about, but yeah, you can see here we also have endless mode, expert Voyage. Oh wait, I guess we can do expert Voyage, but for expert endless, we need to actually get to 100. Berserk, hey, we have to get to 100 in expert endless. We can do random endless already, and random expert endless, and looper, but anyway. There's also local multiplayer co-ops. There up to 4 people can, go on a Pivvot Voyage at the same time. I haven't done this, but, your mileage may vary if you're the kind of person who, has somebody that they would like to play with. It is only local multiplayer, so, no going into this that you're not going to be able to play it online with your friends or anything like that. But now, this is the, what I would consider to be the main mode, and you might disagree. You might think that Expert Endless is the main mode, but the Endless variation or variety is, for me, a lot more engaging than the Voyage, because the Voyage just ends and it's like, die as little as possible. I really much prefer just trying to survive as long as possible. So they'll keep throwing obstacles at me over and over here, and we'll just try to get as far as possible. The one thing you will notice is that when we die, and we will die pretty frequently here, but when we die, we're going to get the same obstacles in the same order again and again. This is another thing that I would kind of have preferred if it was different. I would have preferred if maybe it randomly pulled some obstacles, and maybe that's something that does happen on Expert Endless, but on regular Endless, you know what you are going to expect. So it takes away a little bit of the engagement, but beyond that, it makes it a little bit frustrating when you actually, let's say I die like 70 seconds in here. That was a terrible thing. As always, do as I say, not as I do. You want to be on the trailing edge here. There we go. Okay, now I'm starting to focus because this is like the best I've ever done. But yeah, I would have liked if, I don't like to throw like procedural generation, random generation out there because I'm not a game developer. I don't know necessarily how those terms work or if they'd be applicable in a game like this, but I would have liked to have seen varied obstacles. Let's put it that way. Now, no pressure, but if we do get to 100 seconds here, we unlock endless or expert endless mode. Holy shit, we actually did it. I did not expect that to happen. Now let's go for a good leaderboard position. I know in endless, like right now, the highest leaderboard position is like 200, so I'm not expecting that we're going to get to 200 seconds, but I can at the very least have a chance here. And we're going a lot faster now, which is scary to me. And again, we're getting the same obstacles in the same order on our second pass through here as well. Oh, that was dumb, but I did complete endless there. I could have kept going if I had just not made the world's dumbest mistake there. But cool, now we can actually do like expert endless if we want to. So we got to 100 seconds in that. Let's go to expert endless and try this out. So overall, how do I feel about Pivvot? Oh, these are new obstacles. So I should probably do the Voyage to learn how to deal with these obstacles rather than jumping immediately into endless. And now, I hate when this happens, but I'm starting to have the realization of how you're supposed to play the game, which is use the Voyage as kind of a tutorial, and then use endless as like the actual test for your skills. That makes a lot more sense from a progression standpoint. I almost feel like Voyage should be renamed or something like that, but it's a little bit of a, a nitpick, let's put it that way. So we'll try to get as far as we can in the Voyage here before the video's over. I don't want to necessarily show off too much because part of the fun is figuring out how to beat the obstacles for yourself. But yeah, okay, my overall verdict on Pivvot. It's good, it's solid. It's, again, this is not the $5 game or a $5 game that you're going to spend hundreds of hours with by any stretch of the imagination. But if you were into stuff like Super Hexagon, then Pivvot is kind of like a logical, not progression necessarily, but another logical kind of like companion to that, that I think it serves a pretty similar purpose. So yeah, consider checking Pivvot out. It's $5. That's pretty much bare minimum price on Steam. There are some games that go lower than that, but it's the perfect price for kind of like a feel-good mobile port. I know how to do that. I'm just fucking it up miserably here. So there we go. Yeah, so there's really no cynicism that I can possibly have here. It's a pretty good mobile port. The controls work perfectly fine. It's got that like minimalistic visual style, so it scales totally fine on like a monitor or something like that. And it looks nice, and it sounds nice. I wish there were, a few more tracks in the game per level, but part of that, recall is because I spent like all of my time with the game playing only one level over and over. But now I'm starting to realize that I am bad and am not even going to be able to get through the Voyage here, which is making me feel pretty bad about myself. But let's try this like so. Okay. So I would recommend Pivvot if you're a fan of Super Hexagon and you got your money's worth of Super Hexagon. I don't see how you could like Super Hexagon and not like this. I know I've mentioned the name of that game many times here, but it's with good reason, because that's its most direct comparison, I would say, for sure. And beyond that, even if you're not interested in picking it up at full price, this seems like the kind of game that's like, you know, like Super Hexagon, perfect for picking up in a sale. Maybe you say, you know, I would rather save my money and pick up something a little bit more substantial, like something I can spend a little bit more time with on Steam at full price. Oh, yeah, that was bad. And I don't begrudge you for that, but, you know, if this goes on sale for like, what the heck did I do? Okay, that was unfortunate. That played with my brain a little bit. Yeah, you know, pick us up in a sale down the road for a buck or a couple bucks, and then there we go. We got the puzzle unlocked there. Then you'll get your money's worth for sure, I would say. This is one of those games I would recommend keeping an eye on for when it comes down in price. Not to say it's necessarily one of those like wait for a sale type verdicts. It's more like if you're not totally sold by it, you can pick it up later at a cheaper price and you will get your money's worth. But you'll get your money's worth at full price as well, I'd say. If you're into this sort of thing. If you're not, then, you know, stay far, far away. Now, okay. I can't wrap my mind around that obstacle yet. I think I gotta spend a little bit of me time with it in order to understand it. That sounded a little bit sinister. So we'll probably do one more stage here. And if we manage to beat this stage, or whether or not we manage to beat this stage, can I just not move on this track and that'll work out for me? Let's try that next time we... Oh, that was terrible. Let's try this next time we come across a one of those obstacles. Maybe we can just stay right on the line, and with the spins, like or with the loops, we won't actually have to spin. Again, I apologize for my terrible play. What can I say? I was good in normal mode, at least half decent. We can check our leaderboard position, but I don't think it's particularly strong, and that would seem like weird bragging considering I'm playing a pre-release version of the game. Anyway, endless leaderboards. I'm gonna check, totally. They were in 10th place in the world. That's not so bad. I can live with it. In any case, as always, thanks for watching. This has been Pivvot. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Check it out on Steam if you're interested. There will be a link in the video description below. Again, $5, probably 10% off for its opening week sale, which means it'll be $4.49. Yeah, I think I've said my piece on it. If you enjoy the video, click the like button. It helps out a great deal. And of course, subscribe if you want to see more first impressions in the future. But for now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.